As Mom was dying, I sat in her palliative care room in the Three Hills Hospital and wrote out stories from her life on my laptop. This was good therapy for me. I want to share some of those stories with you so that together we can grieve the loss of a wonderful woman. Together we can celebrate her life and sense of humor. And together we can renew our faith and hope for the future, because God, who guided Mom through life and death, will journey with us too and bring us to His country. Elizabeth Lake was born in Portland, Oregon on January 23, 1924, 94 years ago. Once, when our family was in Portland, Mom got someone to drive us past the house where she was born. As we stopped on the street to look, she pointed at a second-story window and said, "That's the window I was born in." It became a family joke for the rest of the trip that she was born in a window. Her father was John G. Lake, who is still famous in some circles for being a Pentecostal missionary to South Africa from 1908 to 1913, where he was involved in a mighty work of the Spirit of God. He had an amazing faith-healing ministry and was one of the founders of the Apostolic Faith Mission, a South African denomination which today has about 1.2 million adherents. His wife, Jenny, died in South Africa in 1908, leaving him with 7 children. In 1913, he returned to the United States, became a minister in Spokane and other locations, and started a ministry of faith healing. He married Florence Switzer, and they had 5 children together, of whom Elizabeth was number 4. Her father died when Mom was 11 years old, leaving his wife with no income. Florence found a job cleaning offices in the evening to make a meager living for the family. Mom's older brother and best friend, Rod, died about a year later, leaving Elizabeth with a well of grief that she didn't know how to deal with. She often felt like an abandoned child growing up and going to school with her younger sister Esther, while her mother worked evenings. Elizabeth said once, "I think one of the saving elements in my life in Spokane was Mrs. Grinnell, my friend Pauline's mother, who was a motherly soul, and I think I learned most of what I know about feelings for others from her. She's the one who would take me to funerals of little girls she didn't even know because she felt for their parents. And I think that probably made it easier for me when Dad died, because I had been to funerals." Somehow, Mom inherited or learned the faith of her parents and developed a deep relationship with God that has been the foundation of her life. At age 20, Mom moved to Portland and worked at the Wings of Healing radio broadcast hosted by the Wyatts. Mom said, "When I was working at Wings of Healing, I had to write people who wrote in with problems. Evelyn Wyatt said I wrote very good letters." About meeting Keith Westfall, she said, "Dad came up from his accounting job in Oregon on weekends and stayed with his friend Irie. He asked if they thought that girl that played the piano would go out with him. We started around Easter, about April 6, and we got engaged August 2 and married on December 20. One of my sister Ruby's friends loaned me a really nice wedding dress that fit perfectly. Ruby didn't tell me that her friend was divorced. She thought it might affect my feelings about wearing the dress. Mom and Dad were married for 47 years. I think Mom redeemed that wedding dress. They spent a while in Bethesda Bible School near Portland. Then they heard about Prairie. They were attracted by the motto, "Training Disciplined Soldiers for Christ." They also liked the fact that they could both attend school here on Dad's money from the GI Bill. A thoughtful and generous idea to share the benefits Dad was getting. In the fall of 1948, they came to Prairie by train. On the train ride, they spent long hours standing at the back of the caboose, enjoying the mountain air and views. But when they arrived, they discovered that the smoke from the steam engine wafted back and settled on the caboose, leaving them covered with a layer of grime. Mom's memories of Prairie include living in G-dorm and constructing a big history chart of the Bible and ancient civilizations. The chart was too large for the small dorm room, so she and other students kneeled in the hallway to work on the floor. Mom remembered collecting cold water at the end of the hall and holding it under the steam pipe with steam hissing through it to warm it. If they ran back to their room with the warm water, they had running water. They used it for washing or for a sponge bath. The dress code in those days was that the hem of the dress had to be 12 inches from the floor. When Mom finished making her dress for the junior program, she found the staff member who reviewed and approved such things and took her up to her room to see the new dress. Mom said, after she approved the dress, I showed her the shoes I was going to wear. They were toeless and without a strap. The approver said, "Mrs. Westfall, don't you think those are a bit suggestive?" But I wore them anyway. Dad wanted to be a Bible translator with Wycliffe, so one of the summers between school years, they went to the Summer Institute of Linguistics in Oklahoma. They drove down with another couple whose destination was Nebraska. The distance was about 1,800 miles, and Mom said because they were so poor, all they had to eat for the whole distance was sandwiches made of peanut butter and Rogers golden syrup. I'm glad I didn't buy that car after they used it. Toward the end of their senior year, Ellie Maxwell asked Dad to consider staying on staff as an accountant. Dad and Mom accepted that offer, so Mom lived in Three Hills for 70 of her 94 years. She said that initially she found the bald prairies harsh and uninteresting. She longed for the trees and woods of Spokane and Portland. But over the years, she gained eyes to see the beauty of the changing seasons in the grain fields and flatlands. I think that was one of Mom's gifts. She was willing to learn, willing to see the beauty in the landscape and in life and in people wherever she met them. Her first son, Steve, was born in 1953, and I was born a bit more than a year later. The year I was born, Steve had some serious medical problems and cried day and night. For a while, the doctors thought he had leukemia. Mom said, Once we had to leave him in the hospital in Calgary for about a week, and they wouldn't let us visit him. And that was terrible. That was just awful. She said the verse, "Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving present your requests to God," came to her and sustained her through that difficult week and that difficult year. Jim was born in 1957. Then, in 1963, Mom found herself unexpectedly pregnant again, this time with John. During her pregnancy, Dad was diagnosed with cancer and had a radical mastectomy, making another very difficult year for Mom. In the late 1960s, when Mom was going through yet another stretch of difficult family problems, she somehow found the courage to go see a psychologist in Calgary. She said, "At one point, Eunice Cairns, the psychologist, asked me if I thought I was Pollyanna and didn't want to create any waves. I've always been thankful that I saw her. She must have given me some perspective that was helpful, probably some awareness that all the problem wasn't mine." Some people are beaten down by trials, and some people grow through them. Mom grew. For years and years, she had a weekly prayer meeting with a few ladies in some small room in Prairie Tabernacle, where they prayed for each other and for their children. She often memorized scripture, which always found its way from her head to somewhere deep in her heart. She was a good listener, listening compassionately and gently to all sorts and conditions of people. I know she memorized much of the book of Hebrews once. Hebrews 5:2 says of the high priest, "He is able to deal gently with those who are ignorant and are going astray, since he himself is subject to weakness." Mom had the spiritual gift of knowing her own weakness and dealing gently with people. About 5 years after Dad died in 1996, Mom moved into Golden Hills Lodge, where her social life and relationships blossomed. I started a habit of phoning her at 7:30 every Sunday morning. We would talk for half an hour. Then she would go for her Sunday morning breakfast muffin at the lodge, and then off to church on the bus. One morning, I was 3 or 4 minutes late with the phone call. She said to me, "Do you know that my neighbor Ben in the next room sets his clock by when my phone rings? Now he will probably be late to meals all week." On the phone calls, I loved to hear her stories about people she had talked to that week, about people and events in her small group Bible study, news of the happenings in the lodge and in Three Hills, news of the Dorcas Circle and of the Prairie Tabernacle congregation. Mom was the principal agent in my spy system in Three Hills. I don't think I can replace her. She said to me in those years, "I can tell I'm growing old because my social life is mostly funerals." In earlier years, when Mom was more mobile, I would bring her to Edmonton for Christmas and Thanksgiving and family reunions. When she was no longer able to navigate the stairs in our house, we moved Christmas to a hotel room in Three Hills. She loved poppycock, so I always included a large container of poppycock among the gifts. One year, when most of the gifts were open and the table was littered with wrapping paper and gifts, the poppycock we were passing round somehow got stopped across the table from Mom. After a while, she leaned over to me, pointed at Pearl and Claire, and said in a stage whisper, "Dan, can you please rescue the poppycock from those girls?" So I rescued the poppycock from those girls and placed it safely between me and Mom. Mom always gave me money to buy Christmas gifts from her to each member of the family. When we pulled out the presents and prepared to open them in the hotel room, she often said, "Oh, this is exciting. I wonder what gifts I'm giving everyone this year." I think Mom gave us all gifts. And I think that often she did not know how deep and precious were the gifts that she gave. For the last 8 or dozen years, the Christmas gift Mom and I exchanged each year was season tickets to Rosebud Theatre. Whenever I arrived at her lodge room on a Rosebud day, she was nicely dressed and ready to go. As Jim wrote in his eulogy, she always dressed neatly, and one of the grandchildren said, "Everything Grandma wears hugs well." Mom thoroughly enjoyed our Rosebud Day together. A drive in the country to Rosebud, a buffet lunch before the play, often followed by a drive through Drumheller to see the Badlands and hoodoos, sometimes finishing the day by sharing a Subway sandwich and a bag of chips in her room. At Rosebud, we always managed the buffet in 3 courses: a salad course, a main course, and a dessert course. Once, when we were there, we looked in on the dessert offerings as we returned to our table with the main course, and the desserts looked very good. But when we returned later to choose some, all the best ones were gone. Mom was disappointed. After that, whenever we went to Rosebud, Mom selected her desserts at the same time as the main course, just to be sure. She loved the activities Chris put on at the lodge. I think Mom won a gold medal for Switzerland in the Olympics there one year. Another time, with her walker and a pony stick, she rode a difficult and dangerous RCMP musical ride. I think she was chief rower in a dragon boat festival once. In one of the pictures we have, she is wearing a pair of rabbit ears. I'm not sure what that activity was about, and I'm not sure I'm going to ask. When Mom turned 90, Jim and Ruth came over from England in January and arranged a 90th birthday party in Golden Hills Lodge during the week, and an open house birthday celebration at the Prairie Dining Room on Saturday. Pearl and I came down for the Saturday celebration and stayed over Sunday. At Sunday lunch in the private dining room in Golden Hills Lodge, Jim and I got to exchanging views and comments and jokes that kept everyone laughing. Enjoying it thoroughly, Mom looked at Jim and me and said, I think this proves that the nuts don't fall far from the tree. I said, Mother, I believe the saying is that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But she chose not to correct her nutty description of us. My brother Jim in England died about a year after that in April 2015. Mom took his death very hard. She said to me, "It was my turn next. It wasn't Jim's turn. Why did he jump the queue?" I hope Mom is giving Jim a hug and telling him she forgives him for jumping the queue. This spring, when Mom was in Westview Care Community, formerly Linden Nursing Home, she told me they were preparing for their big spring bake sale. At the time, the common area had big signs for each of the 9 fruits of the Spirit. Mom told me that she gave some advice to the manager. She told him, "If you want to have a really good bake sale, perhaps you should take down the sign that says self-control." Toward the end, when Mom was in palliative care, she had a difficult time spiritually. One time, when Pastor Tim visited her, as he left, he heard her saying, "You are a liar, Satan. You are a liar." Pastor Tim said, "Does she do that often?" And I said, "Yes, occasionally." The next night at 2 a.m., when I was sitting beside her bed holding her hand, she said it again, "You are a liar, Satan." When she was asleep and I was drifting off in the reclining chair in her room, I thought, man, I'm glad I'm not the devil with this lady on my case. I think Mom put the warrior back in prayer warrior. Mom's niece Sue tells this story. Once, when Aunt Elizabeth was visiting them in Kennewick, Washington, someone in the family found a small kitten down one of the holes where the golf ball goes on a golf course. They brought the kitten home, and since the family wasn't really a cat family, the obvious solution was for Sue's husband, Carl, to put it down. Meanwhile, however, the kitten had taken a liking to Aunt Elizabeth. It purred on her lap, slept on her shoulder, and snuggled in her hands. By the time Aunt Elizabeth's visit was over, the cat had become a full-fledged family member. They named it Oliver, and it lived a long and happy cat life in Sue's home. Sue says that when her grown children visit Kennewick with their children, they still like to tell the story about how Aunt Elizabeth saved the cat. On Mom's Facebook page, after I posted news of her death, a lady who has had her share of troubles in life posted this comment. "Your mother was my only friend when I moved back to Three Hills in 1988. How she knew who I was, I don't know, but I spent a great deal of time at her house that summer. I appreciated her so much." Mom reminds me of a shepherd I know who carries the lost sheep home on his shoulder, who sees the sparrow fall, and who comforts the lonely people. And finally, Jim tells this story in the eulogy he wrote. In 1998, Mom took a short course in grief counseling. When she arrived at the first session, she was intimidated to find that the other participants were all healthcare professionals. But she stayed and finished the course. During the debriefing at the end, several participants said, "I wish you were my mother. We are proud that she really is our mother. We miss you, Mom."